Now, in our world, if you thought your life was threatened, you'd kill the person who's threatening your life.
In 2011, we interviewed Bobby Cummines.
Them days I was not only watching the police, I was watching other gang members who would have shot me, and I would have shot them.
In the 1970s, he led a violent gang known as the Chaps.
I wanted to be the guy that was respected and people liked, but also had that other side of me that I was very violent. If you mess with me, you ain't gonna come back from it.
Bobby Cummines, reformed gangster, armed robber, enforcer, and hitman.
You hurt mine, I hurt yours, bottom line.
He spent 13 years behind bars before changing his ways and dedicating his life to rehabilitating offenders.
It's weird. It's weird. I mean, if someone had told me, 30 years ago that I'd be advising the Prime Minister, Blair at the time, and yes, a Special Advisor for the Select Committee House of Commons, Deputy Prime Minister's seat, I'd be awarded an FRSA, Royal Fellow of the Royal Society, then get an OBE, then just get an Open University Masters, Honorary Master's degree. If I'd have told that to the Governor of Parkhurst, he would have took me over to see the psychiatrist and I would have been nutted off. But these things have happened. And I saw the beauty in this world and I learned about where I fit in society. And I read this, I'll never forget, because I read this thing when I was doing psychology and sociology, and it was about a deviant. And we all knew it was different from everyone else. And then I had a word for what I was. I was a deviant. And it was quite nice to have this label, this deviant, because it meant I could do my violence, so I could justify and say, it's all right, I'm doing this violence because I'm a deviant, right? So it sort of rounded it off. But when I got into it, I saw there was people helping me that didn't have to help me, decent people. And my life was one of violence, nastiness. I didn't know. I slept with a gun under my pillow. And every room in the house had a gun, and that was, I've been shot and I've done it on other people, but it was an ugly world and it was a paranoid world, and you can be centre of attention in a crowd and everyone cheering you and all that, but you're totally alone because you're wondering who's going to either stitch you up or who's going to shoot you or whether you've been set up. It was a totally paranoid world. And this world I live in now, I go and see my naughty kids in school with de-glamorised crime. I have a laugh with them. I go and lecture at universities. I meet people like yourself, lovely people. I only have nice people around me now. And I weren't never a rat in that world. I was top of the tree of my game in that world. And in this world now, I've left that world behind. I don't never forget where I come from. It's very important because that enables me to do what I do now. Take the negative and turn it into the positive. And that's what I'm always saying to people. You can change it. You don't have to live in that world. You can change it. And it was a great honour. I mean, when I got that OBE, I was very proud, but it's also very humbling. You're standing in front of the Queen, and I'm an out-and-out royalist, everyone knows that. And it was funny, so were the Krays an out-and-out royalist as well. In fact, most of the worst gangsters I've ever met all loved the Queen in the country. It was crazy. And here we are, all serving her pleasure. No, she's loved, the royal family, And then when I got that, I thought, I never get I stood there at Buckingham Palace with my dad when I was a kid, and there was these people going in to get their honours. And my dad, I come from an Irish family of 8 kids, and he went, see them there? I said, yeah. He said, they're the toffs. He said, and one day, he said, they go through there. He said, if you ever get to that stage where you go through that gate, you've made it. And when I come out with my top hat and tails on, with my OBE, there was a little boy standing there with his dad looking at it. And the dad said, can I have a look? What did you get? I said, OBE. He said, can I have a look? And I showed it to him, and I looked at this little boy, and it was like a flashback, and I went, one day you'll have one of them. And I put it back in my coat, and we went to have to do. But it's amazing. No one knows what's around the corner. No one knows what's around the corner. But it's whether you want, if I wanted to go back in crime, I would have either been dead, serving a natural life, or still doing some terrible villainy. That was the three options. My life expectancy would have been cut very short, because there's always someone who wants to take your place, because we're all hungry, and you've got to be prepared for that. You can't go out shooting people and not expecting to get shot yourself. You can't go out killing people expecting not to be killed yourself. That is that world. In this world, I get up in the morning, and I think doing jail done me a favour, because now I really appreciate, I walk out and I look at the trees and I look at things around me, and I really appreciate the beauty of this world. But because I met so many very, very dangerous people and very, very disturbed people, I also recognise now, instead of where I used to look at straight girls, they was part of the crowd of Oxford Street. didn't know what they'd done, didn't want to know what they'd done. They weren't part of my world. The only time they become part of my world is if I was on an armed robbery and I had to lay them on the floor. That's the only time I mix with straight goers. Now I meet them, I've got beautiful friends, you know, and the police now, when they see me, is Bobby, can you do a talk here? You know, they're not kicking my door down. And it was funny, when they brought the royal warrant to my door, my postman went, it's a royal warrant. I said, yeah. I said, the other warrant I used to get, I said, was for my arrest. I said, this is a much better one, you know. So, and it was, you know, and it's so special because that sends a message out to my kids and my people. If I can achieve this, you can also. And it's very important because it's no good saying you can achieve it. They've actually got to see you achieve it to believe it. So seeing is believing. By the very fact that I got that tells a lot of my people we can leave it behind, and if we leave it behind, it will be recognised and we will be rewarded for it. So that's why it was so important. Well, you had the Krays and the Richardsons. They were the names. They was looked at as godfathers. They were the top of the league. The Krays on a different level because there was violence and so there was fear, but Richardsons was looked at like really as movers and shakers. They were doing deals, you know. In them days, they was buying their bank gear, selling it. You know, they were business type things. So they were top of their game in what they was doing. They had the scrap yards and all that sort of thing. They were money getters. And in this world that I lived growing up, you wanted to be a money getter. You wanted the nice suits. You wanted to be at the right clubs, you know. And so, if you like, that's what you aspired to. If you was a criminal, you aspired to either being like the Krays where people feared you, right? And there's a difference here between people respecting you. Now, the Richardsons were respected because they were money getters. The Krays was feared, and a lot of young people get this mixed up when they go respect. People respect me. They don't respect you, they fear you when you're doing violence. I wanted to be a bit of both. I wanted to be the guy that was respected and people liked, but also at that other side of me that I was very violent. If you mess with me, you ain't gonna come back from it. So if you like, I wanted to be a little bit in between, but the two focal points were the Krays and the Richardsons. And it was what way you wanted to go. But they were top of their game. We couldn't get much more power than they had. They was top of their league. And when I say that, I mean, other villains aspired, or people from our world, I don't like using the word villains really, people, because, you know, I look at politicians, a lot of them are villains, you know, people from our neck of the woods aspired to be like them. So if you like, they were powerful, they were very powerful. If they labelled you a rat or a wrong 'un, you weren't going nowhere. And it's the same as if a boss at a company said, well, hold up a minute, this guy pilfers out the warehouse, you're not going to get the manager's job. So, if you like, they were well respected and their word carried a lot of weight. So if they wanted to do you damage, they didn't have to pull pliers and electrodes out on you. Their word was enough to finish your criminal career, or your career in dealing with anyone who had a nightclub. If they said you was a rat, you're not going to get in a nightclub. You walk up the door and the doorman will shut the door in your face. So and it's the same with the Krays could do that. So when you're talking about people on that level, they command power. And so when you're young and you mould yourself on that, so that in your little area where you live in North London, when you walk into a restaurant and it's full and they see you come to the door, they make an extra table up or they throw someone out so you got a table. And it was quite funny because one girl I was with one day, she was a lovely looking girl, but the lift didn't go to the top. And she went back to her mum and she said, it's really lovely when I go to Bobby. She said, we go to restaurants, it's really lovely, always get a seat. She said, and they give him money. You know, so bless her heart, she and her mum asked me what I did for a living. I told her I was in banking, which I was robbing them. But it's the way you look and then you build up your reputation, and then the people like the twins or the Richardsons look at you and think, this kid's a mover and shaker, he knows how to earn money, we'll cultivate him, you know, we'll help him get on. Or if he was violent, the twins will get hold of you and say, there's another soldier we can recruit to put the arm on people and do the protection and the demand game. So it's all according to what side, but both of them had the power to either help you or hinder you. So that is, everyone wanted to be in their place. I met Charlie in Parkhurst, going back a long time now. Obviously his name was well known to me many years ago because of the circles I moved in, but he was quite well known in Parkhurst and quite well respected. I think you give people a good hiding. I mean, it's sort of called in what you call torture. I mean, torture is a very, very dangerous word to use, because if you bash someone up and you know, people go, oh, you know, I was tortured. Then when you get cases where people really are tortured, where they got banana republic regimes where they're having their teeth pulled out with pliers and that sort of thing, electrocution, you know, all sorts of things, then it takes that, it waters that down. Charlie probably gave people very bad beating or a good hiding, but they wouldn't have got it if they didn't deserve it. And that's the bottom line. I'm not justifying anything Charlie's done. Get me right, same as I wouldn't justify any form of criminality, because I am not that way anymore. But in them days I was that way, and I would have probably done exactly what he done. If I had had rebellion in my ranks, or if I'd have had someone trying to pull a stroke on me, whatever he'd done, there ain't no leader of any firm or any gang that would not have done what he'd done. You know, people say, oh, it's like Butlins. When you're on the island, I mean, in them days, Parkhurst was Britain's Alcatraz. You had terrorists in there. You had people that, well, people got killed for an onion. You know, one guy got stabbed to death over an onion. Life was very cheap in there. Everyone in there was a potential killer. So it was the most respectful place that you would ever meet, because if you didn't say good morning to someone, they'd get paranoid and think you was plotting up with them, and they'd come up and stab you. So everyone carried a weapon. Everyone was sort of on tenterhooks. At the time you had the Krays in there, well, you had Reggie Kray in there on the same landing, and there was the IRA and all that, but Charlie was a different character. And I got to know Charlie through his love of books. It was really weird, you know, normally you'd be sitting there talking about villainy and what you've done and all that, but Charlie was, he was a highly intelligent man, but he was also well read, so he was a very interesting man. And when you're in there for that length of time, you get fed up with hearing about the crimes we've committed and who's done what. And to have someone talking about totally different things like Africa and Open University, and Charlie would talk about philosophy, psychology, you name it. I mean, he'd read it. Mind you, he had 25 years to read quite a lot, so he had a good head on him. And I found him quite a fascinating character. And it was hard because you had the Reggie Kray at one end and Charlie at the other end, and they were two different ball games, and I was friends with both of them, which put me in the middle. But Charlie, I would say, was my dearest friend there, and he was the one who got me into education. He was the one who said to me, you know, you're worth more than that. You go out with a gun, one day, Bobby, you're either going to be lifed off or they're going to shoot you dead. And so really, in them days, I was not only watching the police, I was watching other gang members who would have shot me, and I would have shot them. And so Charlie said to me, he said, you're highly educated, why don't you start doing Open University? So really, where I am today, I've got to thank him for, because it was him who got me into the Open University. Then from there I went on to Greenwich University, and you know, well, my life has changed totally. And it was thanks to him, because prison didn't change my life. It was the hunger for knowledge that he'd fed me with that changed my life. Well, the thing is, what you've got to look at is the Krays were different to the Richardsons. I mean, I'm only speaking about Charlie now because I know Charlie. And when I'm talking about the Krays, I'm talking about Reggie. I mean, though we used to get letters off of Ronnie from Somerset House 3, Broadmoor. And Ronnie would send messages down like, he was always wanting someone cut or someone injured. There was always violence with Ronnie. And I think Reggie, in his own way, he didn't want it. But he'd get orders from Ron, and so he'd have to, and so he got a bit growly. And Charlie's a fit guy. You wouldn't like to get a right hander off of Charlie. He was down at gym, mate, and he can pack a punch even to this day. You wouldn't want to cop one off of him. But Reggie was into that, and they come from that sort of background where it was the street fighting and that sort of thing. And Reggie was always getting the messages from Ronnie like, be the governor, be the governor. And I sat down and I said to him, I said, you know, people are getting worried in the prison because you can't be true to you would have had to take sides. And it would have been people stabbing each other, it would have been bloodbath, and everyone knew that. So a peace had to be made, and Charlie Richardson weren't intimidated by the twins at all. He just, if they wanted it, he would have given it to them. Krays also hurt people for pleasure. Charlie, if he clumped someone, it was to protect his interest. I don't think Charlie Richardson ever killed anyone. And I'd go 99% on that. If he did, I don't know about it, but I don't think Charlie. Charlie was a fighter. You could have a fight with Charlie and you'd have your work cut out. But no, I don't think he... It's funny because I have killed, and so, like no to like, I don't think Charlie is a killer. Charlie was a businessman. If Charlie had been brought up in a different time, in a different family, Charlie Richardson would have probably been one of your top businessmen, probably, you know, knighted or whatever. Because he was about money. Charlie was purely about money. The Krays was about power and about violence. They weren't articulate, they weren't educated. Charlie was articulate and educated. It was like two different things. Also about the loyalty thing. If you look at Charlie Richardson, when he got sentenced, I mean, Charlie took the fall for everyone. And rightly so, because if you're the governor, it was the same as when I got done with my lot. I stood up and I said, these are my men acting under my instructions. If they hadn't done what I told them to do, I would have shot them. I asked for no leniency for me, but leniency for them. And Charlie Richardson was the same thing. Better one go than all you go. With the Krays, they had brilliant people like the Lumbrianos, like Ronnie Bender, like Freddie Foreman, and they really wanted them to take the rap for them. So if you want loyalty off of people, you've got to be loyal to the firm. And one thing about Charlie is his loyalty. It's unquestionable, and that's why he's respected. Where the other two, they were bullies and thugs. They had loyalty to each other, but they didn't have a lot of loyalty to the people who worked under them. And that was the difference between the Krays and the Richardsons. And that is why it was really hard in there. The people that didn't have an head on them, didn't have the business on them, were just thugs, would have gone towards the Kray end. The people that were business people, organised criminals, would have gone to Charlie's end. It always amazed me when I looked at Freddie Foreman, Chrissy Lumbriano and that sort of thing. I thought, you was on the wrong firm. You should have been with the Richardsons, you know, because there was that loyalty there. But with Charlie, and when we had to make the piece, it weren't that hard to make the piece because no one really wanted it anyway. Everyone knew that if it went off in there would have been dead bodies all over the place. But it was Ronnie who was causing that problem. Reggie, I think, in his own way, respected Charlie, didn't want it. And Charlie just wanted to get on with his jail and get out, you know. But Charlie didn't fear no one. Charlie had a wicked sense of humour. In the most dismal times, Charlie could make you laugh. And we used to have, and when you talk to Charlie too, we used to have nights in there where we used to get these really strange characters, I mean psychopaths and all that. And they'd come in the cell and we'd have story time and we'd listen to their cases. And I don't know how Charlie kept a straight face, but he could always keep a straight face. Some of the bizarre things we was told, if anyone ever wrote in a book, they'd never believe us. But we had one guy, and he come into Charlie's cell and we were sitting there, me and Charlie having a cup of tea, and he told us how an angel came down with burning flames coming out of his feet and all that thing. And I looked at Charlie, I said, what's he smoking, you know? But the guy believed it. And when the guy went out, Charlie went, he's not quite there, bless his heart. And I'll never forget that. Yeah, he's not quite there, bless his heart, but you have to put up with this in prison. But there was that dark humour. And Charlie could, you know, you could be down. Because when you're on the island also, you've got your visitors coming across. Now, if you had the wind going up the Solent the wrong way or it was snowed in, it means we didn't see people for months. And when you ain't seen your family, it's the most important thing, or your friends, tensions rise and old scores want to get settled, and that is the dangerous time. And that's why it didn't help when you got Ronnie sending silly messages. I mean, he sent a message to me when I was in another jail with a note on it, Bobby cut him. And I just tore the note up and I thought, I'm not doing jail for you, because I don't know you nothing, you know? And who are you to tell me to cut someone? No, and I knew the guy that wanted cut, and he was a nice guy, and so I tore it up and threw it away. But that's the sort of thing we was getting off of Ronnie. He still thought he was running a criminal empire. And what they didn't realise, there was 18-year-old kids and 15-year-old kids out there, if they was out there today, would kill them. You know, they got away with it at that time. And I think when you look at the Krays and the Richardsons, they grew up in a time after the war and during the wartime, and it was very much about survival. And they paint Charlie as this torturer, this bad guy. But we've all bashed people up. I mean, I've got to go hands up to it. We've done terrible things to people. People was getting cut, stabbed, shot, all sorts of things. And with Charlie, there was a political element because he was mixed up with the girl from the Bureau of State Security in South Africa, our boss agent, which he didn't know about. She was just a beautiful bird to him. But because of that, there was the Harold Wilson thing and political thing. And I think they thought, hold up a minute, he's getting too close. I think that he didn't talk about that, Charlie, to me. I think that was a lot of that was hype. But having said that, when you've got News International tapping everyone's phone, I don't think any of them's going to get 25 years. So it's a bit rich. Now, in them days, I think that there was a little conspiracy there. Charlie was getting too big too soon. He was mixing in circles that they thought was above his station. Charlie didn't accept their rules. Charlie played by his own rules. And I mean, if you look at the power, the circle of power, you know, the rich made the rules that we live by today to keep their wealth. And then our people went, well, actually, we don't like your rules because that's geared up in your favour. So maybe we'll make our own rules that are geared up in our favour. And that is why you've got the criminal underworld. All right? So we said, no, you were robbers, slavers, and God knows what else. So we can do the same. And this time we ain't going to give the money to you lot, we're going to keep it. We want a bigger piece of the action. And that is where gangs form, the criminal underworld. It's gone back years, you know, it's been going on for years. But it's about your own rules. And this is what makes me offended when people talk bad about Charlie. You know, the people that was involved with Charlie were nasty bits of work themselves, you know. And in them days, we had our own way of settling things. We had our own rules. We had our own laws. There's things you do and things you don't do. You don't go and rape women and children, right? You will be taken away and sorted. You don't burgle your next door neighbour. There was a law that you don't hurt your own. If I had a contract out and they wanted me to shoot your kneecaps or whack you, I couldn't do it in front of your wife and kids. I'd have to wait till there was a time because we wouldn't want it done in front of our wife and kids. So there was these rules that even Charlie had to obey, that if he allowed himself to, the people that Charlie dealt with were people that were rats, that had tried to rob him or tried to take over his business, and he had to deal with it in that way, because if he had let them get away with it, then the next guy would have been, and he wouldn't have lasted too long. So if you like, in our world, discipline was quick, it was fair, because they knew what they were signing up to. Every one of us, even me, when I entered this world, I knew what I was signing up to. I knew the rules of that world, and I had to obey that rules, and so did everyone else. If they didn't want to be bashed up, then don't take liberties. You know, they all say, Charlie, give them a shirt in. I mean, I don't think the Krays, after they torture people, give anyone a clean shirt. That's the sort of gentleman Charlie was. You know, you're not going to go home to your family looking a mess. So, you know, they've painted Charlie a lot worse than what he was. Everyone was doing it, you know, Krays, the Maltese firms at the time was doing it. They was all stabbing each other up and nailing people up to walls and God knows what else. And what happened behind closed doors never got reported to the police. You know, there was people that was tortured, there was people that were blinded, you know. So when they made that big thing about the torture gang, what you've got to look at, who gave them that information? The very people that was trying to rob Charlie and take liberties with him, the rats, you know, and so they're dishonourable people. No one knows what happened that night except the guys who was there that night. And the problem is, it's like the Chinese whisper. Who was right, who was wrong that night? You hear different sides of different stories. And also things get blown up out of proportion. You know, it go from, if you listen to people, the way they talk about even crimes I've committed in my past, I've wiped out half of North London, you know, if you listen to the rumours now, when in fact it's nowhere near that bad, you know. And so things get blown out of proportion. What happened in that club was a ruck that happened in nightclubs, the City Club in London. I mean, guy got stabbed to death there. Things happen where it just kicks off and it can be the silliest thing. I think where it got out of hand, I think Charlie being in South Africa left it an open door for people to, if you like, bear old grudges and it get out of hand, where Charlie would have had that nipped in the bud before it got out of hand. I don't think Mr. Smith's would have happened if Charlie had been in the country. That was madness. That was throwing down the gauntlet, that was madness. In fact, that's total insanity. You don't go in a pub. If you're going to whack someone, you watch them, you learn their routine, you target them, you pop them, you take them away, and there's no body, right? There's nobody, no one screams. Because you're a villain, you could have left the country, got a new ID. And the police didn't worry about if villains was doing villains. But to blatantly walk in to a pub full of people and pop someone, it's lunacy, because there's got to be comebacks. The police have got to nick you for it. They've got to have a body for that. They can't have a guy running around when, if you like, the government are saying we're doing away with a death sentence, and all of a sudden you've got Ronnie handing one out in public. It couldn't work. And in fact, I think that really brought the police in where they started coming heavy on the firms. Ronnie, by doing that, didn't do anyone any favours, because when they come in and started investigating, armed robbers couldn't go to work, people who was dealing in bent gear couldn't go on the streets because old Bill was turning everyone over. It really messed up a lot of business. He weren't loved when he done that. And also, all right, Cornwall was a bit mouthy. He could have cut him, he could have bashed him. But to go in there and do that, he's thrown down the gauntlet to the people who knew him, because he had allies, I mean Charlie and all them, he's thrown down the gauntlet to them, and they've got to look and think, well, if you do, it's the old thing, you hurt mine, I hurt yours. Bottom line. In them days, and I can talk about days after that, even in my time, you had the serious crime squad, the robbery squads and the drug squads and all that. Their warrant card was like a Barclay bank card. They used it to cash in dough, mate. I mean, you had top commanders of the yard. They was all taking backhanders. In fact, the robbery squad probably, well, I know, was setting up armed robberies for armed robbers to do and getting other people to take, who was already nicked for armed robbery, taking a rap for that one, so they all had a divide up. Everyone at that time was looking for an earner. And that included the police, the barristers. Everyone was looking for an earner. And it was graft. That's how it was. But the police, yeah, they'd go in places, they'd nick you, and you'd go, look, can we do a deal? Yeah, well, give me $5,000, and we've nicked a guy for a similar offence, he'll take the fall for it. And we even used to do it when we was on remand. We had an armed robbery going up, and the guy's nicked for 3 armed robberies, and you were on one, you would say to him, look, you're nicked bank to rights, if you take this one, we give you $5,000. You plead guilty to my one, that means I'm released and I'll look after your family when we get out. So you take the rap for the 3 he's done, plus the extra one, you're walking out, police have got their books clean, they're happy, because they've got a clean book, you're walking out the door, next bit of work, you give his family, but you bung him $5,000. He goes in prison as a nice guy, he's not a rat, he's took the fall for someone. It works in everyone's favour. The police got their nicking, their books are clear, the guy's got a nice little pension in nick, and his family's got a pension outside, and we're still active to be able to go and do our villainy. It was business. You all try to tamper juries, anyone who says they don't. When you are up on a serious charge, such as murder, if you think you can bribe a copper, if you think you can put a dodgy witness in there, if you think you can get to a juror, you're going to do it, because at the end of the day, what you're talking about is your life. Now, in our world, if you thought your life was threatened, you'd kill the person who you thought was threatening your life. So if you're going to get a life sentence, which is being buried alive in a concrete box, you'd bribe anyone. You'd bribe the judge if you thought you could get into him. So, you know, whether he did, whether he didn't. If he didn't, I would have think he was bloody foolish, because I would have had a go at him if I thought that I could get out of it. So, you know, it would have been the name of the game. He would have done no different to what I would have done, anyone else done. If I'd have thought I could get into that judge, here's a couple of grand, mess up this trial, he would have had a nice Christmas present. He talked to me, funny enough, more about how people had misrepresented him. You know, he had a guy write a book about him, a journalist, and the guy wrote pure fabrication. But Charlie, it was too late because the book was published, and Charlie has never really had someone sit down with him and say, right, Charlie, tell me how it really was, and be brave enough to actually, if you like, show it for what it really was. And that's why I'm hoping that will happen here, that he'll actually, at the last time, because Charlie's getting on now, and he needs to put the record straight, and he needs to tell the truth how it really was. And I think that when you're doing jail, it's bad enough when you're doing jail for what you've done, okay? Like, I'd done everything I'd done, and so I got 13 out of 20, I deserved every day of it, all right? Because I was dangerous, and I did all the things that I did. But to sit in there knowing that you're doing jail for what you really didn't do, that's hard bird. I think Charlie was let down by everyone, to be honest with you. Why I think the world of him, I respect him. He did it the right way, Charlie. He took the rap for the lot, and it was a big rap to take. The lot, I mean, 25 years behind the door, mate. Strong man. He took the rap for the lot, and I love him to bits. for his decency and being an honourable man and doing that. Because when you looked at it later on in my lifetime, when I was running firms, you had super grasses going and all that, you know, and the honour went out, everyone doing a deal, can I get out of it and lay it on me mate, you know. And basically, I mean, with the Krays, they wanted Lumbriano, Ronnie Bender and Freddie Foreman, all them to take the rap for them. They weren't as honourable as Charlie. Charlie Richardson was an honourable man. The buck stops here, I'll take it, even though it weren't his to take. That's the difference. And you know, I've got to give him 10 out of 10 for that. He'd done it the right way. I think he was badly let down. He was let down by his own firm. He was let down by the criminal justice system, because the police knew who was doing what. The judges, there was papers there probably that didn't come out. British intelligence was onto him straight away because of the connections with the Bureau of State Security. So they knew every minute of the day what Charlie was up to, and also that he weren't there at the murder, you know. But it was a game of Nick Charlie, because Charlie was the figurehead, and so we want a head, his head will do. In fact, it was, we want a body, Charlie Richardson's body would do. That's what it was. It wasn't whether he was guilty, whether he'd done these things. And also, you've got to look at the media at that time. You know, it sells newspapers. If they said, right, Charlie Richardson bashed the guy up, you'd get a column that big in a newspaper. Torture? Oh, yeah, front page stuff, and we're going to run with this for weeks, and we're going to have a trial, and it makes the police look good. We've captured this notorious gang. Not, oh, we've captured a gang, let's give a guy a right-hander. Don't sound very sexy, you know. And so it also, by doing what they've done with him, it also gives the police a big up. But also what you've got to remember, these same coppers that are nicking Charlie are also the ones taking the backhander. So if it comes down to who's a criminal in that game, I think if they wanted to do a round-up of criminal gangs, they should have rounded up the Metropolitan Police as well as the Richardsons and the Krays and banged them all up. There's got to be redemption and there's got to be forgiveness. And to be honest with you, the crimes that Charlie was, if you like, nicked for, served his sentence for, were they really Charlie Richardson's crime, or were they crimes that were made to fit Charlie Richardson? And, you know, I found that if men were guilty of a crime, we all went not guilty for the first year. You know, men doing 30 years, I never done it as a fit-up, we all done that, okay? So when you sit there, after the year, you go, yeah, right, I've done that one, you know, and, you know, because we all got to try for the appeal, for the first year, the appeal. But afterwards, you settle down, yes, I've done that was me who done that. And also, your own firms know you've done it. With Charlie, he's never accepted that he took the rap, and that's why, you know, I love him and respect him for that. He took the rap, but I think he was well fitted up, he was well put in the frame. And I think that is the bad thing when you get to Charlie's age, thinking, Charlie's quite a proud man, you know. If he's done it, he'll go, yeah, all right, you know. But if he thinks he's been had over, Charlie's a brooder. He'll sit there and he'll go, no, I'm not having that. I didn't do that bit, you know. And I think if you sit down and talk to him, he will tell you. And you say to me, Charlie, what did you do? If you put it on him, what did you do? He said, I've done that, and that. I mean, he don't make no bones about it. Yeah, I was in South Africa and I was with this bird, and I didn't know at the time she was Bureau of State Security, but once he knew, I mean, Charlie then thinking, how can I get some pearlite mines? He's a businessman. But, you know, torturing people and all that, no, he's give people good ideas. And I think if I was Charlie doing 25 years, being an honourable man, I think they could have given him a 10 and he would have wiped his mouth on that. But all that, like, bugging the Prime Minister. I think a mountain was made out of a molehill there. Charlie weren't an angel, all right? And Charlie got a bit of bird and deserved a bit of bird. You know, you can't go around bashing people up and not expect a bit of bird, but what they done to him was bang out of order. And all the villains know it. I mean, we all know what Charlie was like, and you hear stories about Charlie, and I've heard it from reliable people. If he could do you a good turn, he'd do you a good turn, but you done him a bad time, you get a clump the same as you would if you'd done me a bad time. You know, that was the world. I think that speaks volumes in itself about the first conviction. Was Charlie really as bad as they made out? No, he wasn't, because if he was been bang at it, he'd be back in and outside again, you know. Charlie was labelled what he was, and Charlie took the fall for other people. Charlie Richardson weren't a bad guy, and I think history now shows it. Otherwise, he'd be banged up for another 30. So I think that, if you like, he's straight goer. He's done what I've done really, he's left crime behind. And I think also that, if you like, upon reflection, he's got a lot of anger in him about what was done to him, and rightly so. But I think he's just looked at it, and he's got a lovely wife now, you know, he's settled down. But I think he showed that Charlie Richardson, that was portrayed in that torture trial, is not the guy you got today. In fact, you know, I'm going to go and have lunch with him. He's, you know, we talk about old times, but I've always felt comfortable with Charlie. I can't say, I'm relaxed, and I can't say you could feel that with the twins, because it could kick off any time. Charlie is stable, Charlie's safe, and he's well respected. To this day, Charlie Richardson is well respected by the people that knew him then, people that know him now. He's done it the right way. He's never been a rat. He's done it the right way, and he's well respected even at the age he's at now.
We hope you enjoyed this video and learned more about reformed gang leader Bobby Cummines. If you'd like to see more true crime content such as this, consider subscribing and clicking the like button down below to tell us what gangster or killer you'd like to see next in the comments section. Until next time.